I'm great. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
How is your day going?
So far, all good. Have been busy with a lot of work, ongoing work for my platform, Believe in the Invisible. So,
Uh,
yeah, all in all,
Everybody
a
is
a
busy.
good start to the day. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so shall we start?
sure.
Then we can start with your background. Give us a little detail about your background, about yourself in brief.
Yeah. So, I hail from a town called Bhandara, which is near Nagpur. I was born in Mumbai and raised in Bhandara here, and I'm a chemical engineer by qualification. However, due to the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis during the last leg of my engineering, I decided to switch my career from engineering to teaching and training. And I have been training in IELTS, which is International English Language Testing System, since 2018 now. I'm also the Joint Secretary of MS Society of India, Pune chapter.
That's nice. You are also indulged with Javed Abidi Fellowship, right?
Absolutely. So I was awarded, and I really feel honored to have been selected as one of the fellow at NCP. And during my 2 years of fellowship that I did, I focused on working on the employment challenges of people with invisible disabilities, primarily MS and blood disorders, because they are still the recognized disabilities in the Act. So, in my stint of 2 years during the fellowship, I conducted a research, did some employee sensitization sessions, ran a campaign, which is now transformed into a platform. And I also had an opportunity to work with a few government officials to make sure that reasonable accommodation, information and reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities is well understood and, of course, is being made well aware to the audience, especially the employers.
That's nice. So, you work for employment with people with for people with invisible disabilities, right? Why
Yes.
specifically invisible disabilities, and why specifically employment section for that? Was it motivated by your own experience?
Yes, absolutely. So I think most of the advocacy that people do generally are because the cause is very close to their heart.
Yeah.
They feel it even more. And my own lived experience of multiple sclerosis, and definitely in terms of education and employment, the challenges that I had faced, I thought that it is something that needs to be spoken about because when after my diagnosis, when I had switched my career, as I mentioned, from engineering to training, the very first job after switching my career was not really a pleasant experience because despite my repeated requests to my employer to not make me work in a very cumbersome and hectic setup to travel twice a day and train students, accommodate lectures as well. Uh, my request was never accepted, and the reason for the dismissal of my request was simply the fact that I don't look disabled, and
Yeah.
that according to my employer it was all psychological, and I was just overthinking. Fatigue is something that happens to everybody, and I should just take it in a good spirit, etc. And because it was, of course, my first job after my career change, no matter how bad I wanted that to not work, but of course, I did not even have the courage to even say no to my employer in terms of, not working in that setup.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I had to surrender and accept what my employer was suggesting because I had to continue with my job. And post that, I think rest of this history because I also came across several people with multiple sclerosis at the MS Society of India who had similar experiences of lack of employer support, lack of reasonable accommodation, very, very less awareness on MS and the invisible aspect mostly. And because I was also the part of MS Society, as I mentioned, I had been a part of one or two advocacy campaigns at the national level. And the two major campaigns that we had advocated for was firstly on data, and second was on reassessment as revision of the assessment guidelines for people with MS so that they can avail a disability certificate.
Yeah.
Because these two aspects were already being taken care by the MS Society of India, I thought of not reinventing the wheel and pursue something which is perhaps not being spoken much about. And that's the reason why I chose to work on employment during the fellowship program.
Yeah. So your experience, you highlighted that your employer said that your visibility is not disabled. If I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, that employer also has a disabled child, and still
Yeah.
he is not, regarding your disability. Do you think there is a different, there is a, I guess, disparity between visible and invisible disability, like thalassemia and multiple
Yeah.
sclerosis, because they are not visible? People are
Yes.
already
Yes.
less
Definitely.
aware about visible disability,
Visible
and invisible
disabilities.
का तो एक अलग ही sense में जा रहा है. Do you think like that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When I started this journey, Anushka, frankly, I already knew this. It's going to take a long time because even to get MS recognized as a disability took us so
Yeah,
many years, right? So it's very much understood that advocacy is something that is always like a never-ending process. You have to continuously fight, and as our very honorable Javed Abidi sir had always mentioned, I remember I heard some from some very nice disability activists that he used to believe in the theory of woodpecker. Just keep on
yeah,
pecking until things happen. And I really that particular part was something that frankly deep inside I already knew. And I knew that even when I was doing my research on employment, I knew that despite having several conversations, running several campaigns, no matter how much I do, it's not something that will happen like magically in 2 to 3 years of time. It's a continuous process, and one person can't fight alone. You need a proper community to do that. And definitely, when my employer in the very interview process mentioned that he had a special child, I was very, very somewhere sure that he would at least empathize with different conditions, even if his child had autism. But in a way, if we look at it, even autistic children do not appear as, if you know what I mean,
yeah,
autistic, right? I don't mean to say that. I'm just simply saying what's the general perception of people.
yeah. That's true.
So definitely, I was very shocked when he forced me to work in a, in an environment, or sorry, in a very manner where it wasn't going to suit my health. And I had already spoken very, very openly about MS to him, but it was sadly not there. And that, of course, again validated the fact that invisible disabilities will be invisible unless and until people really start talking about it and advocate about it. There is definite challenge and lack of awareness, which I think needs constant advocacy and support from the larger community as well. It's not a fight of one person.
Yeah. You talked about that people don't know about it, lack of awareness. I can
Yeah,
highlight one incident from your life only. When you were in college and when you fainted for the first time, there was a
yeah,
rumor spread that you are pregnant, which is a
yeah.
very, which would have been a very shocking thing. Already, this
Correct.
thing is very stereotypical in our society, in our
Yeah, yeah.
country, and that to a girl of college being pregnant, even if that was
Hmm.
a rumor, that must have been very difficult for you.
Very
So,
difficult, of
yeah,
course. It was traumatizing, okay, because this happened when I was just 6 months old in the college, in the sense it was like the first 6 months of my college life, my engineering life. It was the first time I had stepped out of my house, like for at a longer distance, and again away from my family,
yeah,
with no other support apart from my friends, my hostel friends. And of course, because I've always been a very social person, I've always been very, very, I have been an extrovert, if I were to be very precise.
yeah,
So, perhaps my nature and, the fact that I was, anyways, dealing with some health issues ever since my childhood, frankly, because I was a premature delivered child,
yeah,
and I had, health issues already. So I did not think much about it. But uh, I thought that when the first time when I fainted, and again I had fainted, and I was like, I wouldn't say completely unconscious, but yes, to an extent where I could not help myself pull up,
yeah,
you know. So that was the situation, and I remember that I was actually with my friends in a chemistry lab, and we were performing some experiments, and it happened then. I was anyways very, very fatigued back then. So when I fell and I was very weak, it was again an unusual fatigue, which now I know why happened. And my professor, my chemistry professor, who at that point of time was my grandfather's age, took the help of like some guys in my batch and got me up, and he asked those guys to put me on his table basically to help me. get gain my consciousness. And I know in that particular time when I could not I could not sense good vibes from him, and that perhaps he was trying to take advantage of my vulnerable situation. And when I gathered the courage to, just sort of fight back in the sense that I did not let him advance his actions,
Yeah.
and I actually was trying to, even be
Nice.
vocal about his bad gesture to my seniors. And I think that was a very threatening point for him when he just made sure that this doesn't sort of get hyped. So he was the my professor himself was the person who
Started
spread
the
this
rumor.
rumor. Yeah, he himself started the rumor that I am expecting, and that he knows really well, and that he wanted me to lie down on his table because he wanted to, I don't know, maybe test something by the way of just sensing my pulse or no. I just don't get it why he even said that. And because it came from a very well established, well known, and of course supposedly the oldest professor in the college, people believed him. And when I say it was very very traumatizing is because since that day for like 2 to 3 good months, literally no person would speak to
Talk to
me.
me.
Nobody. My own friends in my hostel wanted to just part ways from me. They did not even feel like coming near me. I get that.
Yeah.
And just imagine that, the only family that you have after your own family in your college are your dear friends. And I had only two good friends back then, just two. And those two girls as well did not support me. And my entire batch and my seniors and everybody used to sort of, when they used to look at me, I could sense that in their eyes that, they are badly judging me and whatnot. So I think that episode as well, although that was traumatizing, I was kind of depressed. I don't use this term more often because I know it's a very very
Very
strong term,
important. Yeah.
but I know how silent I had gone in that time, because as I said, I'm an extrovert. And imagine not talking for like so many months straight, and you don't even feel like now talking about it.
Hmm.
So yes, that was one experience. And then later, when I actually had a vision loss, like 2 to 3 years later, and it was a proper episode of MS. That was again a challenging time. So I think one thing led to the other, and finally I knew why it caused me these health issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so. I don't know. It's sad, but it's frustrating and angering. I mean, how can a professor do that? You're a professor. Do you think that people are so judgmental? People are a little judgmental and a little less empathetic. I mean, given the fact of your experience with the professor, with your
Yeah.
friends, with your colleagues, with your first employer, don't
Yeah.
you think that people are not ready to understand others' problems and empathize with them? I would say they're too full of themselves and think that they know everything.
Uh, so there's so many opinions in this sentence. Of course, I actually feel that unless it happens to you, you don't care. I won't
Yeah.
say that they don't want to, maybe, because everybody has their own problems and struggles. So even when we say that, okay, hey, listen, why the hell are you calling us blind, or why are you using this derogatory term? But somewhere I also understand that, it comes from the lack of awareness and understanding. You can't just straight away just go and shoot them and tell them that, oh, you are not aware, you're not sensitive enough.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe there is a section of society, large section of society that wants to understand. They are either not getting that opportunity to understand, or I think it's largely also because of the very misportrayal, I would say, misrepresentation. I somewhere feel so as well. That also is our responsibility. That even people, when they are portrayed on screen or anywhere for that matter, they are not used as subject of mockery or pity. And for a long
Yeah.
time, it has happened, right? Whether it is simply doing it for the sake of astrological benefits, by helping poor, by helping disabled, or just bashing them at a traffic signal for working and not begging. So I think somewhere the image is such that people have sort of taken like a backseat. And I think once we start projecting right and giving right examples, if we set right examples, things will slowly change. And I have seen it changing, frankly, since 2018. And let me also tell you very honestly, I have also been once the part of that crowd
Hmm.
when maybe I never took disability as such a serious subject, right? Now when I'm a part of the community, I've learned it. I've understood. I've understood the difference between sympathizing and empathizing. So it takes a time. I think it's again that is also one journey which takes time.
Yeah, that's true. We really need to, sensitize them enough because they don't know. So you said that your parents were a little skeptical about, sending you to college just far away from your home, and even your placement
Hmm,
that was in
hmm,
Gujarat. They were a little
hmm,
skeptical. Do you normally parents are very skeptical about sending their child to, far away locations than from theirs.
hmm,
But do you think
hmm.
that parents of disabled children are a little more protective or skeptical because
Absolutely.
our society is not accessible or awareness or disabled friendly yet?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are many, many reasons I think as to why parents are, as you said, skeptical. Sometimes they fear. Most of it comes from definitely the love for their child and, again, infantilizing them, celebrating their small wins, etc. There's so much about disability and, of course, education, children. Yeah, I feel that accessibility is one of the factors as to why parents are a bit apprehensive. I think एक्सेसिबिलिटी को इतना एज द टर्म एक्सेसिबल लोग इतना यूज नहीं करते हैं बट यस
Yeah,
आई अंडरस्टैंड दैट they do fear sending their child or dear one away because they don't find the society as more accepting.
yeah, that's true.
I think accessibility still is like a second or third step, but the first fear that any parent would have, in fact, if I think of myself as a parent, I'm not a parent yet, but if I were to really, the very first fear that I would have, despite being in this sector,
Yeah,
would be whether people really understand my child or his needs in the right manner.
yeah, that's
Will
true.
my child be understood rightly? Will he be misunderstood? How will he be treated if people come to know that, he has, let's just say, a neurological condition
Yeah.
or a psychosocial disability? Because people do misunderstand it. I mean, in my case, my own family member thought that if they take a glass of water from my hand, they might get MS.
Oh,
That happened like on
yeah.
several occasions, and the same person did that. The same uncle of mine, right? So he was apprehensive of even taking the glass of water from my hand because he thought that he might get MS. He did not want his daughter to be with me or sing along with me because he thought that again it might be communicable. What if his daughter gets it? So I think these are the very misconceptions. Firstly, I think around disabilities, because when you say disability and then when you add like a few terms to it, just as I say blood disorder, thalassemia, blood disorder, hemophilia, I don't want them to fear as if these disabilities are contagious like AIDS. This is
Yeah,
very funny. I don't want to, again, I'm not in any way, sort of demeaning towards anybody who's an HIV survivor or a person with HIV, not at all. But I'm just simply saying that, every disability I think is, in the very first place, is dreaded.
yeah, that's
Even if back in your mind you know that array it is a locomotor disability,
true.
how will it be contagious? But still you have that fear. Why? Because if I let my child be with that child on a wheelchair for a long time, he might get used to that. And what if someday something happens to him or her? So I think that is the first fear that they have. And definitely the lack of infrastructural accessibility, as I said, the right kind of awareness, the very accommodation needs that a child might have at the place when the child is far or not in touch with their family. So these are the factors I think that make parents very, very fearful of, and I think that was also one of the reasons as to why my parents were very
Yeah,
even apprehensive of me going to some other state just immediately after my diagnosis. Of course,
yeah, of
even
course.
even they needed time to accept and make peace with the fact that their child has something like this. Even I took like good time to accept. I was for a long time I was in a denial mode.
Yeah,
I wasn't comfortable coming out. So I think things take time just as advocacy.
yeah,
So yeah.
it's difficult. It's difficult. So, you went to Delhi for the first time for this fellowship, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Were your parents skeptical about that also, or were they clear about that?
um no, I will not say that they were because I think by the time I had been the part of the fellowship, I had already traveled actually alone. And when I was the part of the MS Society of India, I still am. But I had attended several meetings and AGMs and some medical conferences all alone. Uh, Before fellowship, also, I had been a part of several even pharmaceutical conferences. So I had traveled alone by that time. So when my parents saw me doing everything independently after my diagnosis, I understand it's for many people it's funny because I was still a grown up.
Yeah.
I could have managed, of course, I could have managed it all by myself, but you know, when you know that your child has to take weekly injection for 2 good days after taking the injection, the person is not healthy enough to even get up and just even exercise because those injections really cause me a lot of pain. It takes me at least 48 hours to get back to my own this thing, and after 4 to 5 days again I'm taking that injection. So that entire
Yeah.
cycle was something that definitely my parents were a bit sort of worried about, but because I had traveled enough by then when I was the part of the fellowship, they were very happy. And of course, because I was doing something that was close to my heart. So definitely, when I was comfortable, my parents were comfortable.
Yeah,
And even
that's true.
today, uh, only except my parents, everybody else in my family wants me to quit this sector because it is a disability sector. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't want me to be the part of such a sector where I'm not really disabled and still talking about disability. So I think the only support that one needs is the support of their parents, and even if they're not getting supported, at least their belief that
Yeah.
at least my child is not doing anything wrong.
So, how was your experience when you went to Delhi first time? Any inhibitions? Thodi bahut, there is nervousness when you travel for the first time to Delhi. So, how was that experience?
Okay, so for fellowship, my experience, right?
Yeah,
Trust me, I was super excited. I had no inhibitions. I had no preconceived notions or fear or anxiety at all.
that's nice.
Nothing, nothing at all. Because I have been a trainer all my life, and suddenly turning into a role which is sort of student centric, where you have to actually respond to your seniors. It felt like something that I'm, starting afresh, and I was very very keen to learn things. But disability के बारे में पढ़ना, and of course having already worked with MS Society of India on different issues on advocacy, I wanted to learn better.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn from the world which doesn't only talk about MS. so so really, I had kept my mind thoda sa
Okay.
void to learn things. Yeah, I was excited. I was very very excited, and although I had traveled to Delhi before that, but that was only for family functions, etc. But
Yeah.
never for such occasions. So very very happy I was, and I remember that it was the most and the amazing experience, most beautiful experience of my life. The first meeting with everybody, hearing Arman sir live in front of you, sharing his experience. I had heard him before also in conferences, but that was some other experience. And then also getting some nice feedback from Sumit sir.
How was your relationship with your other fellows that you made friends?
Yeah, I so wanted to do that. Initially,
Oh,
नए नए में आपको इच्छा होता है that you go out and you spend some time. So वो एक thrill start with had, eventually when we had meetings and we used to travel to Delhi for other workshops. I don't know why that energy and spirit sort of fizzled out at one point. I will not say it was, I'm not doing fellowship for that. Maybe, it's experiences and the work that other fellows were doing. But there were many fun incidences as well. No, if not with everyone, definitely with a few. No, in our first, very, very first meeting, which was the induction one, that was the greatest fun that we had because then we had some fellows which are not even the part of the fellowship today. So everybody discussed everything, their romantic life, how many boyfriend girlfriends they had, and are they married, how's their married life as well.
how was your experience when you were on the field? When you were collecting, who, like,
Yeah.
you met the government officials, you collected case studies. How was your experience there? What was their response? Tell us in a brief about that.
Yeah. So my research was largely like 80 to 90% of my research was actually all virtual. So I
Okay.
never really stepped out of my house or went door to
Yeah.
door and collected narratives. In fact, for the first 1 year, I did not even meet even government officials because I wanted to first build a case and wanted to understand whether really it is a problem or not. That's why I ran that campaign.
Yeah.
So largely it was a Google Form survey, and the interviews or the case studies that I collected was through telephonic interviews.
Okay.
And Of course, after like a few months, and initially also when I was trying to collect the data of people who have MS and blood disorder in the state of Maharashtra, I had visited the Composite Regional Center here, CRC Nagpur and DDRC as well. And the meetings, although while on the face and during the conversation looked fine, ultimately getting the data and having the support was a tough task because I used to visit Nagpur to do all of these meetings. Once, in fact, it just so happened that I had confirmed a meeting a day before my travel because it takes 1.5 to 2 hours for me to reach the
Travel. Yeah,
office,
that's true.
and I have to travel by train.
Yeah.
So and I used to take my mom as well. So when it just so happened once that just one day before my scheduled meeting, when I got the confirmation, I went to the place. When I reached the office, I was informed that the director is not there and that he is not available and he was on leave. So this happened once and twice, not many times, but yes. So that was very discouraging to see because I know it might sound as an excuse to many people, but
Yeah.
honestly, in order to even go to Nagpur to have these meetings, we had to plan an entire day in
I can
advance
understand that. Yeah.
because my mother has to then get up at 4. We have a train to catch at 9. We have to also make sure that the lunch is in place. My father was still working when I was the part of the fellowship, so he was working in shifts. So we used to leave our place at morning 8 o'clock and come back by 9 o'clock. And I was anyways by 12:30, 1 o'clock, I would anyways be exhausted.
Yeah. So you talked about, how many challenges that you faced with government officials and with the language and traveling and fatigue. So were there any instances where you felt totally burnt out, like I can't do it anymore and I'm just gonna, not do it anymore, and I must have changed my,
Hmm,
topic or something
hmm.
like that.
Yeah, not topic, but definitely. I have had burnout incidents, and I don't blame anybody for that but myself because I think I put myself out there too much.
Yeah.
I should have taken baby steps. I thought that मैं ये भी कर लेती हूँ, मैं वो भी कर लेती हूँ. I should do everything because I think I was. And I don't know. I don't think I will change ever. I think ये अभी भी मुझ में है ये. That I want to really knock all the doors. The right thing that I could have actually done at that point of time was to really start with my own place instead of being a pan India research. I should have actually started by understanding whether the employers in Bandara
Hmm.
to start with my own father's company. वहां से मैं start करूँ. Believe me, मैंने किया था. I wrote emails to them. I did possibly everything I could do. In fact, I marked NCPDPCC in all my emails. Basically, the conversation was all virtual. And even if I managed to find a few contacts over the call, none of them spoke to me. You can't enter the premises also, na, without a prior appointment.
That's true.
So I actually was after them for quite a few months, and then later I just quit. I won't say that was a burnout. It was just so discouraging that I did not feel like doing it at all. And because there was also a small slight fear, maybe I'm sounding biased, but because my father was still the employee, I did not want them to sort of feel intimidated
Yeah.
by my work because it was anyways going to be my father's last year in that organization. So मैंने वहाँ पे pause ले लिया and I tried to actually work with those people who are in my own network. For
Yeah.
instance, I reached out to a company where my brother is working. I reached out to one company where one of my cousins is working. I wrote several emails to them. I also requested them for some uh, meetings, and I asked them whether they have equal opportunity policy. So my brother's organization perhaps had something along those lines, but not an EOP. But they never got back to me. The very HR of the company also never responded to my calls or my messages or my emails. So the only thing I could have done was literally travel to that office and knock their doors to Pune. So that I think that I should have done maybe if it was going to be the last resort.
So your journey, Anjali, has been quite, intense from college to, finding out that you have multiple sclerosis, and then to working, and then to, working with Vishesh and NCPDP. and other things, and now you're working with PM Daksh portal, right? So
Hmm.
from not getting a reasonable accommodation in your first career, in your first step, in your first job, not getting a
Hmm.
reasonable amount that you deserve, to be to being offered equal opportunity at PM Daksh portal, how does that journey feel like?
Very rewarding. I feel happy. And yes, of course, I will definitely credit my hard work for that. I
Yeah,
did work. Uh, if not very, very hard, at least hard enough to have pushed for a resource material
that's true.
which could benefit a lot of people, not only employers but also people with disabilities, to basically also learn as to what reasonable accommodation is. Because my research showed that
Yeah,
80% of these people did not even know what EOP is, what reasonable accommodation is. So having like a dedicated resource on PM Daksh portal that speaks about accessibility and reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities, I think benefits both the sides, right? Even the
that's
employers and
and
the
the
to persons with disabilities. So I think the one of my findings that showed this shortcoming has, to an extent, very slightly, at least been from my end, achieved, which I would want to believe that. And I also, because I contributed to the making of the booklet on vocational training
yeah,
for people with disabilities, which was again along the accessibility guidelines. So I did also provide some inputs for people with MS and blood disorders and other disabilities as well, especially the ones that are very much similar in nature.
yeah,
So those inputs were also incorporated in the very NCVET booklet, which that was the only disability section which was missing from the entire booklet. And I'm glad that now, because I was in touch with the PWD and a few people as well, तो at least जो only disabilities उसमें से left out थी वो आज उस booklet में है. So I'm happy. I'm really, really happy. When I look back at my journey, definitely I could have done a lot of things better. But the good thing that I did, which I feel is that I literally grabbed all the low hanging fruits. I did not let go of any opportunity.
yeah, that's
That's why I was all over the place.
yeah,
So I made sure that I'm making use of every resource the best possible,
yeah,
which was at that point of time available to me. At that point of time.
yeah. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us, Anjali. We loved to hear your
Thank you,
journey.
Nish. Oh God, thank you so much. And yeah, it's always good to work in this sector because this is my next family.
Yeah, thank you.